Hear the truth. You know, I've heard people kind of say, "Hey, don't tell me. I don't need the truth. I've got my feelings and I'm good. Don't change things up and show me the truth. I don't need the truth because it's not going to change anything." And that is the problem with too many Christians. I would say that most of us know what we ought to do, and we just don't do nothing about it. I've jokingly said a few times that one day I'm just going to walk up here and just open my Bible, and I'm just going to say, "Y'all know what to do," and walk off. Because a lot of times we know what we need to do, and we just don't do it. We know we need to make changes. We know we need to make adjustments. We know we need to get some things right with God, but we just don't do it. I mean, let me throw a few out there. We know we need to pray more. And we haven't prayed. We don't even pray. We don't even add a minute to our prayer life. We know we need to read our Bibles more. We don't even add one verse to it. One man said, "Truly devoted people to the Lord will not drag their feet in serving and honoring the Lord." We just need to see the need and jump to it, if you will. Hey, there's an issue. And I could wait on so-and-so to do it, and I could do this, or I could do that. Or just jump in and get it done for the glory of God. So he saw a need. He started to do it. You know why? Because it was a priority to him. Getting the place of God back to where it was supposed to be. Second thing I say that he did in order to get his worship right, he did some preparation work. He did some preparation work. Now, back in chapter 28, verse 24, we read about his father. And what his father did, it says, "And the father had gathered together the vessels of the house of God, and he cut in pieces the vessels of the house of God." And look at what it says. "And shut up the doors of the house of the Lord. And he made him altars in every corner of Jerusalem." So his father has closed the doors. Has closed the doors to basically the work of God. He's done different things kind of to appease everybody and everything out there. But he has closed the door to worshiping the way that they're supposed to worship. So the first thing that Hezekiah has to do in order to get worship back to where it needs to be is what? Open the doors. You know, think about it. We're going through the pandemic, and people had to close their stores for so long, and many of them said, "Hey, in order for me to start making money again, I got to get my doors open. I've got to get open. I got to start selling stuff again." And I would say the same thing is true in our lives. If we want to worship properly, we got to get the doors open in our lives. I wonder what doors in my life and in our lives and in our church we've shut over the course of the years. Say, what do you mean by shutting? I think a lot of times we've shut the doors to God working and speaking to us. We just don't listen. We've shut the door to hearing. I've done it. You know, somebody's getting ready to preach and you just kind of tune it out. You don't hear God speaking. We close the door. Hey, when we stop praying, we've closed the door. When we stop reading our Bibles, we close the door of God's worshiping God. When we stop witnessing, it closes a door. When we stop coming to church, it closes a door. Y'all understand what I'm saying? There's things that we do that closes the door of worship. You know why? We just need to, and I say that to say this. We need to stop closing the doors and start opening them again. We need to stop hindering the Spirit of God working and stop saying, well, I want it this, and shutting the door and saying, no, God, just come in any way you want to, God, in my life. You know, I kind of jokingly, so people, it happened yesterday. I was volunteering over where the kids do some training, and one of the guys came up to me and he asked the question. He's like, what is your title? That's what he wanted to know. He's like, are you a priest or what are you? And you know, and I said, well, no, I'm not a priest. I said, most people call me pastor, preacher, and I threw out a bunch of titles that some people call them. And I said, but for me, I really don't care what you call me as long as you call me for dinner. Y'all have heard that saying before. And here's what I kind of see here. We've closed the door to God working because we've said, God, I'm closing this door, and you got to come through this door. Instead of saying, God, you just come and you just do what you want. It's kind of like ministry. You know, God says that there's all these ministries, but I don't want to do this ministry. I don't want to do this ministry. But God, I'll do this one ministry now. I want you to bless it. Instead of saying, God, I'll do whatever ministry you want me to be. And whatever ministry you want me to do. Hey, I've been there. Certain ministries I didn't want to be involved in. Didn't want to take, be and things of that nature. And God didn't work. Because I shut a lot of doors on Him. And I remember going in and just opening myself to God and say, God, whatever you need from me, God, whatever you want from me, God, however you want to use me, I will open those doors. That, in order for Him to get the worship back, He had to open the doors. He had to repair them. We'll get into that in just a second. Can I challenge each of us to come to church a little more prepared? A little bit ready to receive God? You know, think about a funnel for just a second. Some of y'all might have been doing funnels wrong all these years, okay? Let's use the funnel of gas going into the gas thing. You got the little gas here. This is y'all's mechanical lesson. On a funnel, there's a small end and a big end, right? Y'all following along with me? The small end goes in the gas can. All right? You know why you don't put that little end and put the big one? Because it's awfully difficult to pour it in, a little thing. Brother Jeff, I figure it's a problem, right? That's it. You say, how does that have anything to do with Christ? We come to God and we're like, God, give us this. I'll give you this little area. Get it in here. Well, we really ought to come to God and say, God, I'm wide open. You just pour it in as much as you want. Brother Steve says that sometimes when he's praying, and I've heard it, he says, may we come with our cups upright, ready to receive it. Ready to just let it pour in and just let it go. You know, it's kind of like when y'all go to the buffet line, you don't want the flimsy plate, you want the big one. And you just say, God, just pour it on me. But a lot of times we don't come prepared. Hey, listen, are you prepared for God to work? Have you repaired the doors, or are you opening the doors? I could tell you about a church in Lamont, California. And they were ready to shut down, completely shut down. They just, God ain't going to work. Nothing's going to take place, and just went on. And they had, the windows actually had already had plywood screwed into their sides, ready to shut down. A little old pastor, at the time, I don't know how old he was at the time. When I met him, he was old. All right, so not sure how old he was. He went and unscrewed them all. He opened the doors of the church. He said, I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to open the doors. That church is still in existence, probably 20 years later now, maybe even a little bit longer. Out of that church, I know of at least 3 or 4 pastors and youth pastors. All these things, all because what? One guy said, I'll open the doors, I'll see what happens. I'll see what takes place. What if we did the same in our lives? And then in order for him to get his worship right, and I've been preaching a lot about this, but it's because it's so important, they had to have they had the priority, preparation, and the purifying of the temple. The purifying of the temple. Let's continue on. Verse 4. And he brought the priests and the Levites and gathered them together in the east street. Who did he go get? He got the leadership together. We might call them the more mature Christians. He got them together. Says, guys, we got a problem. We got an issue. And let's get this thing straightened out. Verse 5. And he said unto them, Hear me, ye Levites, sanctify. Now look at the two things he says to sanctify. Sanctify now yourselves, and sanctify the house of the Lord God of your fathers, and carry forth the filthiness out of the holy place. In 2 Kings 16, we see that King Ahaz has begun to introduce ungodliness and wickedness and appeasing basically every society out there, every religious group of people that were there. He's brought some of those into the house of the place of God here in verse 5. And he says, guys, get it out. He said, we can't have all those ungodly things in our midst and still think we're going to worship God. He said, we got to take care of it. And in our lives, we need to make sure that our part and that our church is pure. Anything that's been brought in that is not honoring God, we got to get it out. We've got to say, God, in order for me to worship you, it's got to be focused around Him. Church needs to be a spiritually minded place that we think about stuff that's spiritual. We don't really do that much. Verse 6, For our fathers have trespassed and done that which is evil in the eyes of the Lord our God, and have forsaken Him, and turned away their faces from the habitations of the Lord, and they turned their backs. And they have just stopped working. They've stopped doing what they were supposed to do. They've stopped following God. And he said, we've got to prepare a place. We've got to prepare a place that's good, that's proper. A place that is pure to allow God to work. And allow God to just move and allow God just to take over and be the one in charge. Now jump to verse 16. I didn't read it, but let me jump over. And the priest went into the inner part of the house of the Lord to cleanse it, and brought out the uncleanness that they found in the temple of the Lord unto the court of the house of the Lord. And the Levites took it and carried abroad unto the brook Kidron. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month they came to the porch of the Lord. So they sanctified the house of the Lord in 8 days, and in 16 days of the first month they made an end. You know what they did? They worked at it. They made progress. They did it quickly. They saw some urgency there. I think we could learn a little bit from that. We need some urgency. We're running out of time to get things right. And then verse 18, And they went in to Hezekiah the king and said, We have cleansed all the house of the Lord, and the altar of burnt offerings, and with all the vessels thereof, and the showbread table with all the vessels thereof. Moreover, all the vessels which King Ahaz in his reign did cast away in his transgression have we prepared and sanctified, and behold, they are before the altar of the Lord. Then Hezekiah the king rose early, gathered the rulers of the city, and went up to the house of the Lord. Verse 20, we see something from Hezekiah that we don't see in much leadership anymore. Here's what Hezekiah did. Hezekiah said, guys, we need to put the house of God back where it needs to be. We need to get our worship back where it needs to be. We need to get rid of that wickedness and that evilness. And here's what he said that most people will not say. I'll be an example. Y'all follow me, because I'm going to lead you down the paths of righteousness. I believe that in the palace where Hezekiah is living, I bet you he went through and got rid of some stuff in his house. Because I believe what Hezekiah realized was, I can get the temple, I can get the place of God together, I can get that cleansed out, but I'm going to start at my house. I'll get that cleaned up because there's some things in my house that needs cleaned up. He's like, guys, just follow me. Just get on and let's just go. And then it said he rose up early. He gathered all the people. Look at it, he gathered. He is the leader. He rules the land, and he says, guys, just get on board. Come on, follow me. And we're going to go to the house of God together. A lot of people want religious positions for the privilege and the prestige it comes with, but we oftentimes forget the responsibility that comes with it. That comes with it. I speak to y'all tonight as spiritually leaders. And I'm going to say tonight, we'll be the example. We'll do what we need to do. We as a church, we need to have a spiritually minded congregation, a spiritually minded atmosphere. And if we're going to do that, it means we've got to do something about it. You know, and I just think if we're going to get our worship right, if we're going to get our worship back to where it ought to be, we're going to have to be that example. Tonight, I want to challenge you to quit shutting the doors to God speaking and just let Him speak to you. When you hear God calling us, you know, it's kind of like a cell phone. You know He's speaking to you. Instead of just looking at the name and turning it off and ignoring it, just answer it and say, God, what can you do? And God, what do you need from me? And God, how can we worship you more? And I believe this with all my heart. And I close with this thought. When we get our worship back, when we get it right, the wrath, all that was there, He's going to take care of it. And what's the opposite of wrath? It's blessings. And what a difference it'll make in our lives. Let's get ready, and we're going to go to the Lord in a word of prayer. And let me just give you a couple of things I want y'all to pray